Hey babies, it's your favorite host, Mr. BMG, back at it again with another episode. Let's get into it. Anyway, babies, I hope you've had an amazing week and have been doing what makes your heart full. Kind of picking back up from last week, you heard me telling you that the Super Bowl has sort of been dancing around who the headliner is going to be for 2026. And at the time of the recording, there was nothing really confirmed yet. And that's why you saw me sort of discussing the possibilities. But obviously now it's been confirmed and Bad Bunny will be the person, headlining the Super Bowl next year. And it received a lot of mixed reactions. Obviously, I think for the white audience of the Super Bowl, the traditional sort of conservative white audience that maybe pay attention to the Super Bowl, this was kind of a shock to their system because they're expecting, your very basic Taylor Swift or any type of, very palatable, inverted comma, white artist to perform, i.e. Taylor Swift, your Morgan Wallens. I think for the Hispanic crowd, and the Puerto Rican crowd and the people who actually really follow his music within the United States and I guess globally, because he is a global artist. If you look at his Spotify numbers, darling, he's basically like the Hispanic Drake, so he's doing the most and it was a big moment for them. I think we haven't really had a big A-list Hispanic artist to perform at a Super Bowl in a bit. I can't really think of anybody, but I think this is going to be game changing in that regard. And I feel like the decision itself was made because it's going to make certain people uncomfortable, and given the political climate and how conservative it is and how intolerant from diversity and race and all of that, I think it sends a clear message that listen, these groups of people that you think you can downtrod on are big stars and are drivers of the economy and have a demographic that supports that and is very much a part of the country. So I think in that regard the benevolence of it is seen in how it's sending a message. But my question is always, does the benefit outweigh the cost? We are obviously in this very conservative and mayhem political climate where people's lives are constantly being sort of scrutinized and watched, and people are being sort of violated of their livelihoods and all of that stuff, and just randomly. So I think we kind of in that very toxic political space where it's like, do the people who want to support him come there without being stereotyped or without being judged or without being violated and without being questioned or without essentially putting themselves in danger? So I think that is sort of the maybe the cost of this decision, that is it in the best interest of the people, his core support base? And if it's not in the best interest, then was it a good move to make when you then think about it because of the political climate? So I think it's a very complicated decision, and it's a very polarizing decision. I think on the one hand, yes, there's merit, and I see why he would have done that. Rock Nation, Jay-Z, whoever makes the decisions, allegedly, or whoever is involved in the process, I see why they would have done that. And on the other hand, I also see the potential pitfalls of that particular decision. I do think it's going to be a stunning Super Bowl. I think it's about time, that Hispanic artists are given a platform because they're very much a part of the minority and also have a voice and have a big population. I came across this story. As you know, the Real Housewives of Atlanta is filming season 17, and obviously people are debating on the cast because nothing has really been confirmed, although we do know obviously K Michelle and Pinky Cole were seen filming with the ladies, so we kind of have made, we've put two and two together to, I guess, assume that they could be involved in some capacity, but that's yet to be confirmed, so it's all alleged. But I came across, Candy's podcast, and she was basically saying a while ago she actually wanted Tami Roman to be a part of the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Now, I think, I was not really sure what the time period was in terms of why she had mentioned it. I think it's probably when she was still on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, so probably quite a while ago, and maybe in a time period where they were not necessarily open to getting other reality stars from other, I guess, Viacom shows or brands related to, I guess, similar platforms, or shows that are targeted towards a similar audience, somewhat, quote unquote. So I think from what she was saying, it looks like there was apprehension in terms of Tami Roman joining, but essentially flirted her name, as well as I think she also mentioned Shamia at some point, that she also flirted that Shamia should join. Shamia joined. Shamia was obviously a success. I think Shamia is good for the show, but I do feel like I want to see Shamia grow out of her Portia, people-pleasing tendencies that she does. Like if she steps out of that realm of feeling like she has to be, subservient to her, I think she can really grow into who she thinks she is and who she actually is. Because as I said, when I saw her hosting at that holiday game, in Atlanta, I knew that this girl has something special about her that could, blossom on television. So we just need to see more of that. Now, with regards to Tami Roman, we've obviously seen her excel quite a lot on Basketball Wives, and really, I'd say one of the foundations of that show. We all know that drama between Tami and Evelyn, but Tami has always been very likable. Tami has always been a girl who likes to be versatile. Like, I think when I've seen her progression in her career, you can see that she uses reality show, or the platform given on a reality show as a means to her other interests, i.e. acting and other creative pursuits. So she's that girl who's not gonna like want to be on a show and think that she's just going to rest on that show and, you know, hold on to it for dear life forever and ever and ever, and, you know, not necessarily evolve actively and beautifully into other things. Very much like an Eva Marcille, you know, like she was a housewife, but that's not her identity. She was also an America's Next Top Model contestant, but for some reason that's not her identity. She's more of an actress than anything else, you know, because she evolves a lot, you know, and she's got a point of view, she's got an identity, she's got this earthy thing that's going for her, and that's really setting her apart, you know. So I do feel like that's kind of the chat with Tami. If she was going to be on Real Housewives, if they'd let her, I don't think she was going to be there forever, but I think her presence is going to be impactful. And although I think K. Michelle is still great television, maybe not necessarily today because she's not the K. Michelle we knew from Love and Hip Hop, I think Tami would have been a great addition too, but because it never happened, we'll never actually know. There's this new diaspora war between Tiwa Savage and Tyla, and this is just based on the fact that Tiwa Savage went on the Breakfast Club, was asked about what, you know, about Tyla's comments and what she thought about it, and she basically said that, listen, two things can be true, which is true, right? In that regard, she's saying that a person can identify as colored. True, yes, this is what you call yourself in your country, and there is nothing absolutely wrong with that because that is a racial category and demographic in your space where you grew up. And the other thing that's also true is that the word is politically, or it's racially charged in the United States because of the history it's had, you know, so that's their truth, but both truths essentially need to be respected and can coexist. And I think why this is actually, or should never have been an issue, is the fact that two things can be true at the same time. Yes, it's racially charged, but you need to appreciate this person is not from here, so they're speaking from the context in which they're from. Who and where they're from is not dissolved because of them being in a new context. You carry your identity wherever you are. That is who you are, right? So yes, first part of her answer completely right. The second part, I guess, is where the complications arose, and I think where this whole drama is essentially rooted. Essentially where she went on to say that, you know, in African culture, as her, you know, her as being an elder in the industry, meaning she's been there for longer. So essentially was asserting dominance to say that, listen, I'm no small fish. I have been around for a long time. Yes, Tiwa Savage has been around forever. Like, she was that girl for the longest time, unopposed. And essentially, in her capacity and in her experience, being a girl who was a frontrunner in all of this, the evolution of African music into the world, she's apologizing on their behalf. So I think that's where it went left, you know, because one, I think she was also trying to make it clear that we're not on the same level. So you're asking me about this little girl, but just know that I am the girl that came before her, before all of them. So you need to pay me some respect. So I think in that regard, I think she was also letting people know what time it is, and the time it is she's a legend. And that's the first part. But the second part was then the apology to, in some ways, I guess, imply that what she had done was wrong. And I think that's where it went left, because people did not receive what she did was wrong, you know, was as wrong, because her acknowledging her race being colored is not wrong, essentially. It's not wrong. It's who she is. And I think that's where people got lost, because if you're now apologizing for somebody calling themselves who they are, you're almost saying that they need to change who they are, and there is something wrong with who they are. And then it comes, you know, identity politics comes into play, race politics comes into play, and then the situation just becomes complicated. So I think you should have just left it at two things can be true at the same time, and I understand how things can be interpreted, whatever. Like, you should have just left it there, trying to understand where she's coming from. Her just apologizing isn't necessarily saying she did something wrong. She's just basically saying that I am acting as a representative of another African musician. I'm saying that, listen, sorry if you misunderstood us. Essentially, not necessarily sorry for her being colored, but it's more so sorry if you misunderstood us, and, you know, this is not what is implied. Let's clear it up. Let's begin to have the conversation, because obviously she is understanding that there is tension, and how to quell tension, you know, a person can apologize even if they're not even wrong. So I think in that regard, I understand what she was trying to say. And when I first saw that interview, I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. I can see how it could probably be misinterpreted and be considered spicy, but I don't think there's anything wrong with what she actually said in theory, because you apologizing is you maybe just apologizing for the misunderstanding, not necessarily apologizing for the fact that she's colored. So I see where the good intention was, and where I feel like people just chose to run with her. No, she actually didn't mean well. She actually really just wanted to throw her under the bus and play or pander to the American audience. I can see that part, but I can also see how we can appreciate that maybe she actually meant well and was always going to be misunderstood, whatever she said in that situation, because people, you know, have already found that conversation to be so sensitive, you know, obviously to the point where the girl's getting all this hate, but so sensitive where anyone who speaks on it, even if it was Trevor Noah who went there and had a conversation at the Breakfast Club, he may still have gotten heat for saying anything, because that's just the nature of that particular situation. The diaspora war is so anti-productive, you know. If we were to be united behind both of these artists, we would be much stronger. The conversation wouldn't be us fighting each other. Yeah, so the next story I wanted to talk about is the whole saga between Nicki and Cardi B, and it's just kind of very frustrating at this point. Like, I actually disengaged from that whole drama because I just got tired of it. Like, I really got tired of how it was playing out and how it really went too far, and in some ways why it was taking place. But I think the why it was taking place may be quite obvious. Maybe that's the easiest part about this whole beef that they have. And for me, the why is definitely publicity first and foremost, more than anything. This girl just released an album, and Nicki Minaj, considering herself as a rival to Cardi B, is going to say and try and draw the attention to herself. It's promotion, but veiled under beef. Promotion for both of them. The one currently has an album, and we are still talking about it. The album is called Am I the Drama? There is drama happening. You know, meaning through medium, life imitates art. Two women with such big platforms, almost 500 million, if you put both of their followings together, treat themselves so recklessly on social media. And, you know, I think of actually Nontle Tema days. Nontle Tema said way less, and the girl got cancelled, right? But even in the past, a lot of celebrities have said way less on social media and got cancelled, you know? But these two people with these ginormous platforms have said way more and are still not cancelled and are still exactly where they think that they are, you know? Because the public is endorsing them. And I don't know, I just found it very basic bitch behavior, basically. Like, the fact that they were reducing themselves to these personal attacks, talking about their children, talking about their spouses, their husbands, their personal lives, just very messy, below the belt stuff. Like, I just felt like for people with such big platforms, so much to lose, they're really acting like they are a person in a basement somewhere who is just angry at the world and has nothing to lose. Nicki Minaj, she's a great rapper at the top of, you know, the industry, but how she's behaving is very much giving sitting in first class but fighting with a bitch in basic economy. That's what she's giving at this point. It's like, if you are on this pedestal and everyone knows you're on this pedestal, but you're still acting like, you know, you're not sitting in first class, you're actually sitting on the middle seat in basic economy. If you're still acting like that, if that's still your mentality, then we have a problem, you know? And I think that's the problem. It's like, I feel like for where she's at in her career, she needs to respect herself a lot more. You're great, but I think you don't always have to defend that. It also came off very narcissist energy, you know, like for me, in my opinion, I just feel like she just gave that, because Nicki is always in one of two realms when she's online, when she's arguing. She's either painting herself as, I'm right about everything, so that righteous archetype of narcissism, right? Right about everything, look at the facts, look at the numbers, I'm the best, greatest to ever done it, right? She's always on that tangent. That's the one tangent. And the other tangent is the, everything is happening to me, I'm the victim, people are trying to set me up, people are trying to do this and that and this and that and this and that. Really, it makes sense, because any celebrity or any person who thinks that they need to be admired by millions of people definitely has a grandiose sense of self, and that is one of the main overarching characteristics of that disorder. It's giving cringe. Pandering to Taylor Swift, promoting her music and stuff, it also got on my last nerve, you know, because it's just like, what is that shit? You know, she, on the one tweet, she's like, I'm a black woman, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. And the next tweet, it's like, you're busy licking the ass of a white or assless ass, you know, of a mediocre white woman. Then what is it, sweetheart? You know, are you a black woman or are you an ass licker? A white ass licker? For me, it made me realize that the whole theme, the whole idea of celebrity is such a scam, and it's a scheme that Todd set up, because, you know, you can't tell me that people who behave like that, people who exhibit such basic bitch behavior, are admired by almost 500 million people. Everyone who puts a celebrity on a pedestal, for me, that's a sign of insecurity. It's a character flaw. Interestingly, the last thing I wanted to talk about, I didn't really want to talk about it because, I mean, I don't even like this girl, and it's just one of those things where I was like, you know what, let me talk about it, because I'm not going to necessarily talk positively about her anyway, so I might as well just talk about it, because whatever. But Taylor Swift released her new album, The Life of a Showgirl, or whatever the album is. I haven't even really listened to it, so obviously, because you know I'm not that girl, like she's not, like I'm only talking about her because it's topical, people are talking about it. And obviously you know that, you know, from the previous story I said Nicki Minaj was essentially licking her ass about her releasing that stupid album of hers. So you obviously know my irritation with it, so everyone was talking about it, that's how we knew about it. But I was living for how people were like so disappointed with the album. Like for me, at almost felt like people are actually catching up to the realization that this girl is and was and always will be mediocre. People were literally roasting her about how disappointed they are in, you know, the music, and that she's like the fast fashion of music, and she just produces shit and it's bullshit and it's just to make money, it's a money grab, whatever. And yeah, man, just basically like they were like tired of her basic bitch energy. They were just, everyone was just so hurtful. They were tired of the basic bitch, you know, ironing board energy. There are people who still endorse that girl, and often their voices tend to be louder, and that's why she is where she is today. So will anything actually change? In terms of white girls, For me, only 3 white girls deserve recognition in my books as the main pop girls. Maybe 4, but 3. And for me, it's Katie, it's Miley, and it's Lady Gaga. Honorary mention to Adele, but I feel like Adele's not really a pop girl. She's an R&B girl who's white. You heard me, I said that. If she was black, people would call her Alicia Keys or something. Exactly. And then you know how Alicia Keys is seen as an R&B girl. So those are the politics that I'm sort of trying to get to in terms of why there's 3, but there's a 4th girl, but by virtue of her race, can be included in that, but isn't really part of that group because she's not like a pop girl. She's not the girl who can sing, dance, and, you know, does heavy choreo or whatever, and just does a lot. You know, she's more of a soulful white girl who really sings R&B, but it's called pop because she's white. Those are the girls who people think Taylor Swift is. And I like the fact that people are kind of waking up to the fact that these other white girls who are slept on, you know, because of Taylor, or because of the obsession with Taylor, are finally getting their acknowledgement and their praise and are succeeding ever more often. Anyway, babies, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Messiest Bitch on the Internet. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also follow us on Instagram at BigManEntertainment_, and I'll see you again on the next one.